You ever experience one of those rare moments in life when you think you know exactly what's about to happen, and then everything shifts in an instant? The mood changes, the air feels different, and you just know something special is about to unfold. That's exactly what happened the night Johnny Depp stunned a crowd with his unexpected and deeply emotional live cover of David Bowie's Heroes, alongside the Hollywood vampires. People came expecting a rock concert. What they got was something far more intimate, far more human, and something they'd be telling stories about for years. The room was packed. That kind of electric atmosphere you only get when people have been waiting all day, maybe all week, for a show. The low hum of conversations, the smell of beer and stage lights warming up the space, the faint vibration of bass guitars being tested backstage. Fans were ready for big riffs, loud choruses, and that trademark Hollywood vampires energy. After all, when you have Alice Cooper, Joe Perry from Aerosmith, and Johnny Depp sharing a stage, you expect a certain kind of show, gritty, loud, full of swagger. And up until that point in the set, that's exactly what they had been delivering. Then came the shift. It wasn't announced, there wasn't some flashy introduction. Johnny just stepped forward. No over-the-top entrance, no hint of Jack Sparrow mischief. His walk was calm, almost slow, like he was carrying something fragile. He leaned into the microphone and simply said, "This one's for the dreamers." And just like that, the first notes of Heroes began to float into the room. It's hard to explain how quickly the atmosphere changed. Moments earlier, people had been shouting, raising drinks, moving to the beat. Now there was a hush. Not silence, you could still hear the occasional murmur, but it was softer, like the crowd collectively sensed they were about to see something different. The guitar opened with that unmistakable haunting melody, and Depp's voice joined in. It wasn't an imitation of Bowie. He didn't try to copy the original tone or phrasing. Instead, it was Johnny's voice, lower, a little worn, textured by years of living, and carrying a weight that matched the song's spirit. Right away, you could see it wasn't a performance designed to impress with technical perfection. It was about feeling. Every line seemed to come from somewhere deep. His eyes weren't scanning the crowd for attention, they were fixed somewhere in the distance, as if he was remembering something only he could see. And as the song built, you could hear the layers of emotion in his voice. At moments, there was a softness that pulled you in, then a sudden intensity that sent a shiver up your spine. Most people forget, or maybe never knew, that Johnny Depp was a musician long before he was a movie star. In fact, acting wasn't even his plan. As a teenager, he moved to Los Angeles chasing the dream of making it in music. He played guitar, wrote songs, and spent hours rehearsing in small, cramped spaces with other hopefuls. Acting was just a side gig to make ends meet, something that unexpectedly snowballed into a career that made him one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. But music was always his first love. You could feel that history in the way he approached Heroes. This wasn't a Hollywood celebrity dabbling in music for attention. This was a musician returning to his roots. What made it even more powerful was knowing the context of the past few years for Depp. The public trials, the endless tabloid headlines, the split opinions, the career uncertainty, he'd been through storms that would have sunk most people. And here he was, on stage, singing one of Bowie's most enduring songs about defiance, resilience, and fleeting moments of glory. When he sang, "We Can Be Heroes," just for one day, it wasn't just the lyrics of a classic song. It felt like a statement. Not loud or boastful. More like a quiet truth he had come to believe. There's a certain magic in performances that aren't over-rehearsed, a rawness you can't fake no matter how talented you are or how much experience you have. That night with Johnny Depp had exactly that kind of magic. It wasn't about showing off or proving something. It was about being present in the moment and letting the music happen the way it was meant to happen. There was no rigid plan, no over-polished delivery that can sometimes strip a song of its soul. It felt spontaneous, alive, and most importantly, it felt honest. Later on, when people started talking about it online, one of the crew members quietly mentioned that Johnny had actually been working on Heroes for weeks, but not in the way you'd expect. There were no big rehearsals with the full band, no endless run-throughs with lights and sound. Instead, most of the practice happened in private, often on the tour bus late at night. Picture that for a moment, the chaos of touring during the day, the noise of travel, the constant movement from one city to the next, and in the middle of it, Depp sitting in a small corner of the bus, guitar in hand, quietly going over the song. No audience. No cameras. Just him and the music. It's easy to imagine those moments. The hum of the bus engine in the background, maybe a few faint conversations from the crew in another section, the occasional flicker of streetlights outside as the bus moves through the night. And there's Johnny, strumming softly, working through the verses, finding his rhythm, feeling out where his voice connects with Bowie's melody. These weren't rehearsals meant to impress anyone, they were private explorations. Almost like a conversation between him and the song. And here's the thing, he never told anyone exactly when or even if he was going to perform it. There was no big reveal, tease to the media, no whispered hints to the fans who follow the tour closely. He didn't even work it into a pre-planned set change. He simply carried it with him, waiting for the right night, the right energy, the right feeling. That in itself says a lot about how personal the moment was to him. It wasn't something to check off a list or fit neatly into a schedule. It was something to be shared only when it felt right. Even Joe Perry, who's been on stage with Johnny for years now, said he had no idea it was coming. And that's Joe Perry, a man who's played in front of millions, a man who's used to knowing every single move in a setlist before the night begins. The fact that even he was caught off guard says everything about how spontaneous this was. You could see it on stage too. The subtle glances between the band members when Johnny stepped forward, that split second of, "Oh, we're doing this now." In today's world, especially in live music, everything is so carefully calculated. Set lists are locked in weeks before the tour starts. Every light cue, every guitar change, even the off-the-cuff banter between songs is often prescripted. Social media has made it so that fans expect to know what's coming, and bands often deliver exactly what's been promised. Surprises are rare because surprises can be risky. But this was the opposite. This was an unplanned gift. And maybe that's exactly why it hit people so hard. When you're in a crowd and something happens that wasn't on the program, it wakes you up. It snaps you into the present. You're suddenly aware that you're witnessing something unique, something that won't be exactly the same if it ever happens again. That night, people realized halfway through the first verse that they were in one of those moments. You could see it in the way the audience reacted, phones coming up a little slower than usual, faces softening, some people just watching with that quiet, fixed expression you get when you don't want to miss a single second. It's also worth pointing out that the decision to keep it a secret probably made the performance stronger. There was no pressure to live up to hype, no mental checklist of expectations to meet. Johnny could approach the song in a way that felt natural, without worrying about whether it would trend or whether it would match the version people imagined in their heads. It wasn't about creating a viral moment. It was about creating a real one. In a way, it felt almost like a private confession delivered in public. A moment where the layers of celebrity fell away and what was left was just a musician sharing a song that meant something to him. That's rare. In fact, it's almost impossible to force. You can plan a performance to be flawless. You can rehearse until there's no room for error. But you can't rehearse sincerity. That either happens naturally or it doesn't happen at all. And that night, it happened. When you think about the pressure Depp has been under in recent years, the scrutiny, the endless commentary, the court of public opinion, it makes even more sense why a moment like this would be so powerful. On stage, with that song, he didn't have to explain himself. He didn't have to defend anything. He didn't have to be anything other than exactly who he was in that moment. And that freedom, that rare escape from everything else, probably gave the performance its weight. By the time the last chorus came around, the energy in the room had shifted. The band was fully behind him now, leaning into the build of the song, letting it grow and swell. The audience, many of them now singing along, had moved from surprise into full emotional connection. And then it ended, no big speech afterward, no dramatic exit. Just a nod, a small smile, and a step back. The kind of ending that leaves you sitting with the feeling rather than rushing you into the next thing. It's not often that we get to see a performance where both the audience and the performer are equally surprised by what's unfolding. But that's exactly what happened. And in a time where so much of entertainment feels manufactured and predictable, that kind of spontaneity, that kind of realness, is worth remembering. It's a reminder that sometimes the best moments aren't the ones that are perfectly planned. They're the ones that happen when the timing feels right, when the artist decides, quietly and without warning, tonight's the night. And for everyone in that room, that night, it was. Now, technically speaking, the performance wasn't flawless, and that's exactly why it worked so beautifully. If you're looking for a studio-polished, note-perfect delivery, this wasn't it. But that's the point. Bowie's Heroes was never meant to be pristine. It's a song built on raw emotion, about two people holding on to a fleeting moment even when the odds are stacked against them. That kind of story isn't clean or tidy, it's messy, full of cracks and edges. And Depp's version embraced that spirit completely. You could hear it in the slight rasp that crept into his voice during the verses, in the way some notes wavered just a little before finding their footing. Instead of breaking the spell, those imperfections made it feel more human, more immediate. It was the sound of someone living inside the song rather than performing it from a safe distance. Every small vocal crack, every breath between lines felt like it carried meaning. It wasn't about singing Heroes perfectly, it was about inhabiting it. That night, Johnny Depp didn't just cover a David Bowie classic, he told the truth of it, and in doing so, he made it his own. Alice Cooper, who has seen more live performances than almost anyone, later said Depp poured his heart into it. Coming from someone who's been in rock and roll for decades, that's no small thing. And the fans felt it too. Social media lit up almost instantly. Clips started circulating on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. People who had been in the audience posted shaky phone videos with captions like, "Didn't expect to cry at a rock concert tonight," and "This was pure magic." Even some Bowie fans who had been skeptical about Depp covering such an iconic song admitted they were moved. And here's something worth noting, Depp didn't try to modernize the song or add flashy changes to make it his own. He respected the original. He leaned into its classic build, letting the quiet beginning grow into something bigger and more soaring, but always grounded in that same emotional undercurrent. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful way to honor a song is to let it breathe as it was meant to, while still letting your own story slip through. Why Heroes? Of all the songs Depp could have chosen from Bowie's massive catalog, why this one? Maybe because it's not just about victory. It's about temporary victory. About knowing the moment won't last forever but embracing it anyway. And if you think about Depp's last few years, it makes sense. He knows how quickly life can change. He knows what it's like to have the world cheering you one day and doubting you the next. Maybe, for him, that song was about celebrating the small wins, the days when you get to stand on stage, look out at a sea of faces, and feel like, just for tonight, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The crowd clearly understood it too. By the second chorus, more and more voices joined in. You could hear people singing along, some swaying, some with their eyes closed, just taking it in. There's something about live music that creates a connection between performer and audience, and that connection was unshakable in that room. It wasn't about celebrity. It wasn't about fame. In that moment, Johnny Depp was just another human being, sharing a song that meant something to him. As the last notes rang out, there wasn't the usual explosive cheer you might expect. Instead, there was a beat of silence, the kind where people are almost reluctant to break the spell. And then the applause came, long and loud, with a few people shouting, "Thank you," toward the stage. Depp gave a small nod, a quick smile, and stepped back as the rest of the band moved into the next song. But the energy in the room had shifted. People knew they'd just seen something that wouldn't be repeated exactly the same way again. Since that night, fans have been speculating if he'll do it again. The Hollywood vampires are still on tour, and whispers have been floating around that Depp might add more Bowie covers to the setlist. Maybe Heroes will become a regular part of the show. Maybe he'll switch it up and choose another track that means something to him. Knowing Johnny, whatever he chooses, he'll make sure it's a surprise. It's easy to forget that beneath all the headlines, the film roles, and the public image, there's a person who still loves what they loved before fame. For Depp, that's music. And for a few minutes that night, everyone got to see that unfiltered. It's moments like these that remind you why live performance still matters in a world where you can watch anything online. Because you can't stream that feeling, the goosebumps, the shared silence, the way a single song can shift the entire mood of a room. If you had been there, what would you have done? Would you have joined in the singing? Pulled out your phone to record every second? Or just stood still, letting it wash over you? For me, I think I would have just watched. No phone, no talking. Just breathing it in. Because chances are, it's not something you can fully capture. You have to be there, in the moment, to understand it. And maybe that's the point of Heroes, to remind us that the moments worth remembering are the ones that can't be manufactured or repeated. They happen once. And if you're lucky enough to be there, you carry them with you. For the people in that audience, Johnny Depp singing Heroes wasn't just another part of the setlist. It was their once-for-one-day moment.